For most of the semester so far, we've been working on familiarizing ourselves with new features and platforms that we need to use. But now, in the last couple sprints, we're going to really focus on actually implementing some of the stuff we've learned and creating something that we can actually demo that demonstrates machine learning operations on Databricks. So basically what we're going to do is in our first sprint, we did a little demo of working in Databricks where we created like a financial fraud detection machine learning model. Really simple variation of it. We did it just in a notebook and it had some problems. But now we're going to actually try to take what we did there and convert it into like a full-blown service that you deploy to a customer or a user. So this is a little diagram. It's there's quite a bit going on because it's a big process, but I'll try to break down the most important stuff. A lot of this is just excess detail. So first we have to develop everything, right? So we're gonna have to rewrite a bunch of scripts that do some operations for developing the models, processing data, basic machine learning stuff. And then additionally, we'll have to create some scripts for testing everything, testing our code, and then configuring the automated features of this machine learning operation system. More importantly, we talk about some of these transition stages. So as we develop, we're going to have to set up a system for testing the code we write and the models we develop. This particular part here, the dev to staging phase of things, is actually testing primarily the code that we develop, right? So every time we write code for tweaking how we train a model or how we process data, we're going to have to retest that code to make sure it works how we expect it to. And so we can do that. One way we can do that is through GitHub Actions. So GitHub has, since Databricks integrates with GitHub repositories, you can automate testing on those repositories with GitHub Actions. And you configure that with YAML files, and those deploy whatever tests you need to run or whatever tests you've designed right on GitHub. And once we're happy with those initial tests, that's when you start pulling the code you've developed to a staging environment. And in that staging environment, for this type of ML service, we basically want to be able to allow someone to interact with the machine learning model we create and figure out if it's working well. So in this staging phase of things, it's about the code should be good to go, and now we want to make sure the model and everything we've developed with the code is running how we want and how a user of the service would want. And so at this phase, it's not deployed. It's kind of like a testing phase, an opportunity to play around with what we've made. And so the primary thing we're doing is continuous deployment of the service somewhere. And that can be done, you can deploy through GitHub Actions. Again, the code can be deployed from GitHub. And one option is to deploy to a cloud provider like Amazon Web Services, and you can set up an image to run there, like a container. And then finally, after using the model we've created, if it's working sufficiently, then we work on actually deploying the staged version of our work into a production release environment that can exist in the long term and it becomes available to actual users for regular use. In theory, it should work quite robustly at this point. And you additionally add monitoring to the release. So if it's released on AWS or something like that, then you'd have to we will configure monitoring features for the release on AWS.